And welcome back, everybody. Oh my goodness, it's finally here. You're watching Talking College Football with Anwar and Dan and Luke. And, this show is going to be full of excitement. We're going to talk about the college coaches. We're going to talk about the rankings, our observations. We're going to talk a little bit about the Heismans. We're going to talk then about preview of some of the key games this week. And then we're going to make an announcement about the Talking College Football Awards program. So, guys, are you ready to go?
Yep, let's do it.
All right, let's go. Man, that was big news last night. If you're Penn State and you see Kalani Sitake getting an extended contract from BYU, and that was probably your man, where do you go from here? Anwar, you want to start us off and give us your overall observations?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to start off with this. So, man, this is a tough situation for Penn State. This could end up in like an absolute disaster situation. You fire James Franklin almost earlier than most other coaches. When you fire a coach that early, and especially a coach with the caliber like James Franklin, you have to have a backup in plan. The goal is he couldn't get past that 10-win mark. They are almost guaranteed to downgrade now. And now we've made it so late into this coaching hiring season where all these other schools, you have Ole Miss that let go. Well, they didn't let go. Coach left him, hired a new coach within 4 hours. Penn State's falling to the back of the line, even though they're at the front of the line. This could be an absolute disaster situation for them. And we don't have time to talk about this today, but man, there's a bunch of drama in this coaching search. I'm really worried for Penn State. It looks like it's going to be Terry Smith.
Oh, Terry Smith, the interim? That gives you no lift at all. Dan, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. Who is Penn State going to go with? And something Anwar didn't mention, so they fired James Franklin so early. They went this whole season trying to prove, okay, look, we're going to get somebody better. Today is National Signing Day. We're recording this on Wednesday. They don't have a coach.
Whoa.
Their recruiting class is in the 120s, I think. So what are they going to do? They don't have a coach. Why would anybody sign there?
Such a good point. Today is National Signing Day. And we just lost Dan?
Yeah, I guess so.
I'm real quick. I'm going to address what he said on National Signing Day. The number one overall recruit was supposed to go to LSU. It looks like he's holding up on that. I was just looking at some notes. Anyway, let's go ahead and let's get back to the Penn State situation. He's right. Who was going to handle, certainly the athletic director, and if they have a general manager, will handle the recruiting. However, have you looked at how people have been leaving Penn State left and right? And guess where they're going?
Yeah. Virginia Tech, James Franklin, following James Franklin. Almost like he was a good coach. It's almost like he was a pretty good coach.
Yes, exactly. Go back and look at our I think it was our 5th episode, and where we talk about we were shocked that James Franklin was fired. I'm looking at what Virginia Tech was in terms of the recruiting, since we're talking about this real quick. Prior to the James Franklin signing, they were like 120 as far as a team in the recruiting rankings. You look today, and they are a top 25 recruiting college. He's already building his base. So
meanwhile, Penn State is down at 130 below Harvard right now.
Wow.
They have 6 recruits, a bunch of 3 stars. Basically, Penn State's recruiting class is just in the absolute garbage right now. So I'm really worried.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. I came in and I heard Penn State is below Harvard now. That is insane.
That's insane. So, Dan, you were making the point about National Signing Day. We talked about it a little bit in reference to the coaching situation. Can you continue that?
Well, yeah. I don't know where I got cut off, but yeah, why would you sign at Penn State right now? You don't know who's going to be coaching you. We already saw all the recruits that left Penn State when James Franklin got fired because it seems like they were more recruited to more committed to him than they were to Penn State. And then you see how high Virginia Tech has jumped. And then you see some of the other schools, like LSU. Nobody left after Brian Kelly got fired. They didn't really lose anything in their recruiting class, and they're about to gain a lot more. I'm sure they're going to take a lot from Ole Miss in a little bit. We'll see that, just to jump ahead a little bit. But I don't know. Penn State really, I think, shot themselves in the foot by firing James Franklin. And they really just gifted Virginia Tech one of the best situations in college football.
Yeah, it's like here, take them. Like you want to have a free like pass the top 25. Here you go. And especially James Franklin being in the ACC, he'll have like an easier time within the Big Ten. A school with less expectations, he can have an 8-win season, and they'll be praising him over there. It'll be great for him.
Yeah, exactly. Guys, I know we didn't have it on the schedule, but at some point during today's show, let's talk about what's going on so far in terms of who's signing where and how they're going. I'm just looking at the top 10 classes right now. Some surprises. Anyway, let's go ahead and let's get back. So where does Penn State go? I mean, really? Terry Smith, is that, if you're a recruit and wow, we lost Dan again. If you're a recruit and you were going to Penn State, which is a perennial power, and Penn State was considered the top job after letting go of James Franklin. Terry Smith? I mean,
yes,
come on.
It's not really, but there's not that many.
So where do you go
options.
from here?
All of the big names of the group of five already got snatched up. John Summerall, Alex Golish, Eric Morris, guys like these, all like snatched up, signed. Auburn, Florida, when then like you're looking at these other top targets like Kalani Sitake, Will Stein over at Oregon is now signed to Kentucky. Like there's keep falling. Like there's not that many big names left, honestly. Like I don't know if they're gonna give Kenny Dillingham a call. I don't right now. Like besides Terry Smith, it's like Brian Hartline. But I mean, would Brian Hartline be willing to take that job over there at Penn State? It looks like he's like waiting for Ryan Day to go off to the NFL or something. I don't know if that's even like a good move for him as a first-time head coach at Penn State. Ohio State offensive coordinator is already a great job. So
yeah. So Dan, we were just talking about where does Penn State go from here. There's only one big name that hasn't made a decision yet that I see, and that's the Arizona State coach Ken Dillingham.
yeah.
That would be the only thing that would give Penn State a splash. I don't see Hartline starting off his career as a head coach for a completely decimated recruiting program right now, and the number of players who have already left ship through the portal at Penn State. So Dan,
yeah, I think at this point Penn State just has to stop the bleeding. They've already fallen so much in their recruiting class, how their public perception has been even. We talked about before with the LSU job when Brian Kelly first got fired. How attractive is that job with the governor meddling in things, the AD, a lot of outside of the football field problems. And now you see Penn State made such a colossal blunder. And do you really have faith in their staff, their front office, their management, if you're going to really attract a coach? Like, you see how they've been run this past season since they fired James Franklin. That doesn't really inspire confidence. I don't know who would really want to take as much of a risk. It's still a big job. It's still a good job. But I think they've kind of lowered the status of their job for pretty significantly since then.
I mean, I think, let me add on to that. I think, okay, so you see the expectations at Penn State, and they're not accepting a coach that gets them 10 wins in the season. You're going to get fired. And I feel like there's a lot of pressure for a lot of these coaches who, especially going into this terrible situation next year at Penn State. You've got players, like, tweeting about, like, bro, we need somebody. And, like, I agree with Dan perfectly with that. Stop the bleeding, because I think Terry Smith would be a stop the bleeding hire, and that's like really the best you're hoping for. Um, but yeah, Dan was talking about the whole LSU, government situation, and like how's that an attractive job? I guess it was attractive enough for a coach to leave his program-bound program to go over there. So, playoff-bound program.
Yeah,
But
I didn't see that LSU thing as being a plus for me when the governor got involved. I mean, the governor of the state. He's not the president of the university. He's certainly not the athletic director, and his job is up for re-election every 4 years. Um, that's ego. That's ego. Um, so I was really shocked of Will Stein getting that Kentucky job. I guess he was a linebacker there, so it made a lot of sense. Is he going to stick around uh, for Oregon for the playoffs?
No,
Do
I'm
you
not
know?
sure.
Or
I
is
would
he
assume he
leaving?
would stay.
Anybody? Mhm.
yeah, I think because it's
So I
he's
guess
a
let me ask you
coordinator.
this. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, he was their OC.
yeah, yeah.
So
That's
let
what I
me
said.
ask
Like,
you
I
this,
feel like there might be
and
a
then
little
we'll
bit more
go on to the
flexible.
ranking. Let me ask you this: um, who won this round of the coaching carousel? Is it Virginia Tech with James Franklin? Is it Ole Miss already having a plan to go with their DC to make him the permanent head coach? Is it Lane Kiffin? Is it Alex Grosh? Um, what team, what school won the coaching carousel this round?
I'll go. I think that if you want me to say a school, I would say Virginia Tech, based on everything we said before, how they've just catapulted their team into a top 25, without really earning it. Really, they just got lucky, had James Franklin land on their lap, and then the recruiting class came with that, just unexpectedly. And then even the timing, like Penn State did them such a favor by firing him so early, so they had the time to go through a search, hire him, and then get recruits more than a week before signing. Um, so I think they had a top 15 recruiting class now. I heard you guys talking about classes earlier. I'm not sure if you guys mentioned that, where they are exactly, but they're pretty high.
Yeah, they're up. They're in the top 25 right now, from 120 to
Yeah,
the top
and so they just
25.
swapped places with Penn State pretty much.
That or a week. They did swap.
And then another biggest winner, not a team, but just Lane Kiffin. I don't know if you guys have seen his deal, but it's insane. They're paying him based on if Ole Miss does good this year. He gets $1 million if they win the college football playoff, and maybe more than that. Yeah,
Really?
Yeah, so
they're honoring
I
all
saw
his
that.
bonuses from Ole Miss this year. They're also giving him like $500,000 to move. They're also paying off the rest of his house in in Mississippi. It's interesting. Yeah, and of course he's getting like $90 million or something.
I think that's pretty standard. Most of those perks, like paying off your mortgage, giving you that stipend to move. I didn't think that's out of line. So under the radar, what team do you think got the best coach? Excuse me, I'm not going to say best coach because that it takes 5 years to figure out who got the best coach. Under the radar, what school has a real good situation with their new coaching hire? Can I lead off because I'm thinking Bob Chesney, who's going from JMU to
UCLA.
UCLA. I think that UCLA
Mm-hmm.
is a sleeping giant. I mean, first off, California, Texas, and Georgia and Florida. Those are the top four states for producing talent. And technically, California has more talent than any other state. So, um, unless no, certainly Oregon goes into California all the time, and you got Southern Cal. But we're seeing that Lincoln Riley doesn't seem like he can pull off a Pete Carroll type situation where everybody wants to go there. So that's why I
Um,
think that Chesney to UCLA, that's the sleeping giant. And if they can return to form of the late 2009 and 10s, I think that's a great
Yeah, I
move.
agree.
all right, let me answer the first of all. Like, I want
Give
to
me
answer
yours. Give
my
me who.
yeah. So first of all, I'll answer that question in just a second. I want to answer the first question too, which was, like the biggest winners. Uh, Dan was talking about like how Lane Kiffin was the biggest winner in this. I feel like really more than Lane Kiffin, the winner is LSU. Because Lane Kiffin at the time becomes the most hated coach on the planet. Once again, like LSU goes from having the most hated coach on the planet to now having the next most hated coach on the planet. But like that's the only big splash hire that's been done so far. All the other the teams have gotten besides James Franklin. Like I would think Virginia Tech is like the winner, and Dan already talked about that. But I'm gonna go LSU. They had like in terms of just a big name, only those two teams have hired like a big Power Five school coach. So those are my two big winners. Now, in terms of my little
Anwar, I
actually
need
like
to give you some
radar hire,
pushback.
yeah,
I want to give you some pushback on the LSU hire. Um, Here's what, in my opinion, Lane Kiffin benefited as much as anybody from all of those other great coaches, the Elkos, the Clark Lees, from signing those extensions. And he was the only one that didn't sign an extension. Where else were they going to go? All the other big names went back to staying with their schools. You know, even if you want to call Matt Rule a big name, Um, all of them got great deals, and they stayed. So he's the only one that didn't. So did LSU really win, or was it that they had no other choice?
I feel like he was their top
Just
guy. I
one
mean,
way of looking at it.
if I feel like how the Southern people get and they don't want a Northern coach, they don't want a da da da. I feel like LSU their top option. Like we knew they weren't getting Elko. Out of all the coaches that were leaving, Lane Kiffin was their best option. I like agree with that. Like that was their best option. It's probably the best fit for them. And we gotta admit he really elevated that Ole Miss program from what they've been. They never had it. They definitely never thought of it as a playoff team. Never had like 10, 11 wins before. So I think it was a great hire for LSU. I think that was the best they could get, where their fans went right. Uh,
Okay,
with my
you're
under the
leaving out a
radar
major
hire,
part.
yeah.
Hold on. You're leaving out a major part. You know that Ole Miss had a better NIL property than both LSU and Florida, right? You do know that.
That's not what it sounds
You
like.
did
Like,
not know.
LSU is promising
They
this man
did.
all the resources in the world.
Yeah.
Well, like he could have
Okay.
stayed at Ole Miss if he had that NIL valuation,
Four
and
years
if they
ago,
were
they said the same
provide
thing
that.
when they hired Brian Kelly. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Let's move away from these coaches unless you got a final thought. Either way, you got a
Wait,
final
wait.
thought because
Let me get my
I've got a little
let me get
more
my under the
actually.
talk
radar
about.
real quick. Under the radar. Yeah. My under we got a lot of talk. We could maybe do two episodes because we have a lot of stuff to talk about with this coaching stuff.
Hurry up.
My
Let's
under
go.
the radar rider is actually Eric Morris at Oklahoma State. You see, like he is bet like okay, this is not
Yeah,
me
look at
being
you
an
mixing.
alumni, but I really think that's a really good underrated hire. He's got North Texas in the AAC championship. Really like you. I don't know if you guys see their quarterback, but their quarterback was like a backup out of high school. He like found this guy out of nowhere, and now is like a bona fide like all American Conference quarterback. He's been with Cam Ward, Patrick Mahomes, quarterback whisperer. I think he's gonna do a great job with that Oklahoma State offense, which has been stagnant for a couple of years. Knows that area. Like Oklahoma State gets a lot of their recruits from North Texas, and then he's bringing in that offensive coordinator with him. You know, once you look at Eric Morris's history with quarterbacks, I think he's a perfect fit for OSU, and that Oklahoma State, not OSU, and that's my underrated hire.
I'll be quick. Um, we talked about Bob Chesney going from JMU. I mean, don't forget that's where Kurt Signetti came from, and then now look at Indiana. So who knows? Maybe he continues the line of great JMU coaches moving on to bigger jobs and just elevating the program. Um, I think that Stein going to Kentucky is also very big. It'll be interesting to see, like, okay, how much of Oregon's success was Dan Lanning and how much was him on the offensive side. See if he could continue that in Kentucky.
Good point.
Yeah. Well, Dan Lanning's a
Yeah,
defensive guy.
Kentucky's in a tough situation. Think about who surrounds them. You got on your east, you got West Virginia and Rich Rod. I don't expect West Virginia to be a doormat much longer. You got Cincinnati and Ohio State to your north, and you've got a revived Vanderbilt and Tennessee to the south, and then you got Indiana, Purdue, Notre Dame, and Illinois all on your west. So, and you're Kentucky. I mean, you even got Louisville in your own state. I don't see that as a great job. And then you play in the SEC on top of that.
Well, who knows? Maybe.
Honestly, I haven't been too impressed with Oregon's offense this year. I think Oregon's a defensive team this year. Dan was talking about, was it Dan Lanning or was it the offensive coordinator? I think Oregon is more of a work of Dan Lanning than it was Will Stein.
We'll see. And if it turns out that maybe Will Stein's some offensive genius, maybe this is just an audition for a job where he's more has more tools to win. Because Kentucky, that's Kentucky. That's a basketball school.
Yeah.
Sorry to my friend Rami who went to dental school there, but yeah, it's basketball school. Don't expect the football team. Yeah, Anwar knows Rami.
You guys can shout out anybody you want. I do it all the time.
And then quick, I think Alex Golish hire at Auburn's big. I think that he may be the best Group of Five. Oh, actually, no, he wasn't from Group of Five anymore. I forgot. South Florida is. They're in the. Are they? No, they are. No. They're making okay. I wasn't sure if they were one of the ones. I think I'm thinking of UCF. But yeah, I think he was the best Group of Five coach to go on to a bigger job. So we'll see that maybe the Auburn-Alabama rivalry will be big again. And then an underrated one, I think Pat Fitzgerald getting hired by Michigan State is big. He didn't have a lot of success in the last few years. Yeah, but he was a good coach. The last few years, then the scandal kind of covered it up. Kind of showed, I don't know, they kind of like overshadowed how good he was in the early years at Northwestern.
Yeah.
I want to address two things that you just brought up, Dan. Go ahead on.
Okay. I was talking about flying under the radar. I feel like that one, like that Michigan State hiring and firing was truly under the radar because, like, they fired Jonathan Smith, and like I almost heard nobody talking about it, which is like a big deal. But Jonathan Smith was supposed to turn that program around after the Mel Tucker thing, and they just kind of fired him off in the night and brought Pat Fitzgerald in within like 2 hours. I think that was a great hire too. But yeah, you can go ahead.
All right, so I need to address two things, Dan, that you just brought up. Gross, when he goes to, he's going to Auburn. He's got an Ohio State connection. He was brought in as an undergrad coach under John Cooper, and he also coached with Jim Tressel. So he's got good lineage. Chesney, that guy has won everywhere when you look at his record as he came up the coaching ranks. And I want to address the Pat Fitzgerald. Now, I think Pat Fitzgerald, he's a Chicago guy. So I think he's a heck of a football coach. He did a lot at Northwestern. But if you're Michigan State, okay, if you're Michigan State University and you just had one sex scandal, now you got a hazing scandal that's also is, I'm not saying, listen, obviously Fitzgerald won the lawsuit, but that hazing involves some, a little bit of sex as well. That's one big scandal after another big scandal.
Hey,
Is
there's a
it really good
gymnastics
hire for
trainer
sure?
too. That's 3.
Yeah, no,
So
Michigan
what are
State.
we doing, Michigan State? You're supposed to be higher academics. You're supposed to be a leader of men. Um, I don't know, what message are you sending? Uh, if I got to tell you, Anwar, if you were a recruit and we were looking at schools right now, Michigan State would not be in our top 20. I'm just telling you.
But you got a good point. A lot of these schools that go through scandals. I'm thinking of like Baylor and the Art Briles scandal and everything. Like you have to get rid of your name from that. Penn State with Joe Paterno. You hire James Franklin, who's just like notably a good guy. I
That's
feel
what
like
he
yeah, at
is.
that point that does count. Like, but once you have that scandal, you can like go down this dark path of just being like that SMU route where you like yeah, just keep going down this dark path, and like your school gets like tarnished, your name, and a lot of recruits don't like that. Like, really, a lot of people want a good players coach. But also, like, who else is Michigan State gonna get? If we're talking about that, who else was Michigan State get? But I realized like these coaches, they like to stay in there in like that. This is a very regional thing, and I realized like okay, the Southern coaches they usually stay in the South. The Oklahoma, Texas area coaches, they usually stay in that area. The Midwestern coaches, they usually stay in that area. The big Midwestern coach, James Franklin, already went to Virginia Tech. Who else was Michigan State going to get? Kurt Zanetti already signed. Like, who else were they going to get? There because they weren't getting Brian Hartline.
Yeah. I know I did talk to a friend of mine who's a college professor, and uh, he hates this hire, to be perfectly honest with you. Um, from from his point of view as a college professor and academic standards to go along with it. All right, guys, let's go ahead. We're going to try to wrap this show up probably in the next few minutes. We spent a lot of time talking about the coaches. Let's talk about why people tune into our show. All 40 of our subscribers, but we still get those 2,000 views. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's move it up. By the way, if you're viewing our show, can you just subscribe? Gosh, it would make such a big difference to us. Maybe we wouldn't have so much lagging on Dan's end when it comes to the internet every other week, or those type of things.
Hey, one
So
more thing. One more thing.
anyway,
1 second.
This
One
guy
talk
second.
finally
about
showed up.
We talked about Alex
Dan's got one
Golish,
more thing.
Ohio State connection. Hey, don't forget he was at Illinois for 3 years. So that's the real important connection.
Gee,
Alex
that
Goldberg.
Yep,
powerhouse
he
coach.
was there.
Wait, Alex Goldberg.
Yeah, he was tight ends coach for 3 years. Also, I'm looking at it right now. He's also some other things too. Looks like halfbacks coach maybe. But hey, 2012 to 2015.
Really, I didn't know that.
And, Dan, we were talking about pedigree, and you can't quite. I know you're Mr. Illini guy, okay? You cannot compare the coaching staff at Ohio State with the coaching staff
I
at
don't know.
Illinois. I'm just
I don't
saying,
know how
okay?
many.
I mean,
So,
Tressel has a
Well,
national championship. Urban
how
Meyer
many
has
coaches who
national.
took the Bears to a Super Bowl have coached at
Over
Ohio
the
State?
last,
How many coaches who took
I'm
the
sorry,
Bears
say
to
that
the Super
again.
Bowl have coached at Ohio State?
Have they ever had a coach from Ohio State at
Yeah, who took them to the Super
for the
Bowl?
Bears?
I'm gonna say
Mike
though,
Ditka went to
don't we
Pitt.
see that NFL coaches don't work out in college football? Look at North Carolina this year. Look at North Carolina this year. It's different. It's two different ball games. It's two different things. Actually, Lovey Smith didn't
Yeah,
really
no,
work out
I'm
either.
messing around. Obviously,
And I'm,
Ohio
I'm
State's
glad
way
that
better
Illinois
than
is getting right
Lovey
with it.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So Lovey Smith, who was a defensive coach at Ohio State at one point, then he went to the Bears, became a Super Bowl contending coach, took his team to the Super Bowl, and then he went to Illinois, and all of a sudden he.
Yeah,
Is
I'm
that what
messing
he
around.
did?
He was horrible at Illinois.
I think your
Yeah,
your argument is
yeah,
flawed.
no, I'm messing around. He
Okay.
was. I didn't know he coached at Ohio State though, but he was horrible at Illinois. He was a coach while I was there
Yeah.
for 3 of the years, and he was horrible. You see how much better.
So if you're good enough to coach at Ohio State, you're good enough to win in the NFL, and then you go to Illinois. I think your Alex Gross argument also
Yeah,
doesn't hold water either. Guys, let's
Yeah,
talk
but
about these
Alex Goldberg,
rankings.
But also, like with Alex Golesh, he's only been at USF for like 2 years, and like that's a good recruiting base, and like honestly, kind of been a little underwhelming over there. Like this year, they were expected to go to like the AAC championship, no appearance, and then he's going to a terrible situation again over at Auburn. I'm not really expecting too much of that out of that hire, but cool thing about him, he's Russian, which is probably got to be the first Russian
Yeah.
head coach of all time.
So I'm gonna push back again on you, Anwar. We talk about sleeping giants. Um, Auburn is a sleeping giant. It's like the same situation as UCLA. I think that they can go. If you look at what's around them in terms of recruiting, first off, they're in Alabama, so they're going to go into Georgia just like Alabama. They're going to go into Louisiana and Florida just like Alabama. I can see where that's pretty. Give them a year or two. That's going to be a pretty solid program. They don't really have to take a big step back from Alabama.
Let me push back on you. This is let's just make this the coaching episode. I am gonna push it back on you, and I think it's gonna be hard to get recruits down there because you talked about Kentucky earlier with the whole like they're between Ohio State, they're between Notre Dame. Auburn's in a very similar situation in which they have Alabama directly to the west, they have Georgia directly to the east, right? And they play those two teams every year, and not only that, but they're getting like little broed by both of those teams right now. So I feel like how are you supposed to recruit that area when you have just a better program on both sides than you have
Even Georgia Tech there now.
right? Yeah.
Okay. So are we done with the coaches?
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. Should we just call this the episode and just
So
leave it at the
we
coaches?
just spent the whole show talking about coaches, and I want to thank everybody for tuning in. You're looking at Talking College Football with Luke, and this show will be up on Thursday at 10 a.m. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Talk to you guys later. Bye.
All right.
Peace.
All right.